So to continue off my last discussion here, but I want to remind people of this reality, true reality. I've watched politics a long time, and I could see what's happening. And I see a lot of these candidates that run for higher office make this mistake so many times. Because depending on how many candidates run, okay, you can only get votes from so many different directions. So what I see this happen a lot, especially people that run for president, run for U.S. Senate, sometimes for the House of Representatives, and you'll see these people running. You'll see the establishment pick candidate run with already the name ID and the platform. Okay. Then you see the actual progressive candidate run, which they got a lot of organizational support and platforming on their own side. Then you get these people that are actually an elk of the traditional left. They're progressive, but they don't necessarily have the organizational support. So they don't occupy a particular ideology of the party. And what I'll see a lot of is they're progressive. Don't get me wrong. They're not. It's not they're not progressive. They're just not as progressive as the actual progressive candidate running, who's already got a lot of the institutional support of the left. Then you see the more moderate candidate run. They got their institutional support from the moderates. Okay. And you'll see a lot of these traditional left candidates run, but they have a hard time fitting in either lane. And the mistake they'll often make is they'll start off trying to embrace the left. Then they'll try to embrace the center. But then eventually this mistake they make so many times often is they act like they appear like the spoiler to the left. So a lot of voters start getting a sour feeling about them as a candidate because they think, well, I already have a progressive candidate I'm supporting. Why is this person even running? And what they do is they often make the mistake tacking left. And what I mean by that is they shoot left, not tack left. They go after the progressive candidate. And they'll make a insane allegation against that candidate. They'll do whatever they can to think they're going to elevate themselves more. And what actually happens is a lot of those traditional progressives that probably would have supported your candidacy pull away and support the real left. Or they support the moderate candidate because they think, you know what? Well, at least the moderate ain't making these same ugly attacks against the progressive candidate. Well, at least that's the real progressive. I'm going to vote for that person. And that's the mistake that happens so many times. That's why I said the U.S. Senate race in Michigan is so similar to what I saw at the presidential level in 2020 with the infraction between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. That was the biggest prime example. And to be fair, a lot of candidates didn't have a shot in heck in 2020 because all they cared about was defeating Trump. And that was just the reality. And Biden had the nostalgia of Obama, and that was going to be a hard hill to climb. And a lot of people in the institutional moderate wing of the party backed Biden. So the deck was already stacked against a lot of these candidates that ran in 2020. That's just fact. But the fact is so many candidates ran that they ran out of places to get votes. Too many people were running. So it had people just like all over the chessboard going, I don't know who to support. So unfortunately, a lot of people didn't get very far in the race because there wasn't a lane for that many candidates that ran. There was like 20 Democratic candidates that ran. Okay, and a lot of them were of the traditional progressive left. They weren't the progressive like Bernie, but they weren't the moderate like Biden. So they ran out of lanes to run in. You saw a lot of this. So it really wasn't any candidate's fault. Like people go, oh, well, Harris ran. Yeah, but that wasn't Harris's fault. That wasn't Julian Castro's fault. That wasn't any of these candidates' faults. There was just too many candidates running, getting support from all wings, all fractions of the party. Okay, and they ran out of places to get their votes from. That was just reality. So what happened, to be fair, Warren was doing really good in the race for president during 2020. To be fair, she was like Mallory McMoore in Michigan. And she occupied enough of the left to satisfy the left, but she also had a little bit of backing of the establishment. the moderate wing. She was tolerable to the moderates, but she was just slightly tolerable enough for the left to support too. She had that lane. She occupied that happy middle in the beginning. But the mistake she made, and to be fair, in the very beginning, Kamala Harris did that. But then Elizabeth Warren ended up getting all that support later. Because she was a bigger household name, which is reality. She was in the Senate longer. And to be fair, a lot of the left wanted to draft her to run for president in 2016. So people have that nostalgia of Elizabeth Warren. But the reality is, the whole new movement started. And Bernie really had that institutional support of the left. Bernie was the real progressive candidate. So that irked Warren the wrong way because Warren really wanted that support. And she felt betrayed. But she tried to occupy the more center left of the party, which foiled her campaign even worse at the end because she thought, okay, I'll just go after the educated voters. Didn't work out for her so well. So a lot of them ended up going to Buttigieg. All right. Like I said, too many people ran. There were too many lanes occupied. So she made the mistake shooting left. She went after Bernie Sanders, the face and the God King of the progressive movement. And her campaign foiled to non-existence at that point. Because what is the mistake these candidates often make? They shoot the grassroots right in the face. And then they're shocked they're losing. Well, where do you think most of your support came from to begin with when you became a firebrand and got elected to office? The grassroots left. You have to understand that. So when you start attacking your own voters, you're going to lose a lot of support. Well, that's effectively what Elizabeth Warren did to Bernie Sanders in 2020. It destroyed her campaign. It turned a lot of people off. To be fair, in Nevada, we had ranked choice voting. And there are names I voted for on that ballot I regret till this day I voted for. One of the votes I casted my vote for was Elizabeth Warren because I wanted to be neutral here. I love Bernie Sanders, but they told me I can vote 5 times for one candidate. It's still going to count for one vote. So I decided, well, then I'm going to vote for different candidates because I had ranked choice voting in the caucuses. There were two other candidates I voted for on the ballot that I regret supporting because now that I think about it, my original vote was going to be an original vote that was going to count anyway. But I wanted to neutralize it just a little bit to look fair. So I supported Warren and Gabbard. Now, to be fair, I don't regret my vote as much for Warren, even though I don't like what she did. I was on the fence, though. I almost did not vote for her in the caucuses because I was bad at what she did. But it gave a lot of people pause. All right. Because she shot left. She spit in our face. Because she wanted to sabotage the guy who actually dared to challenge the establishment and expose the corruption in our government. Because Bernie had the balls and the goal to do it. And he's a lifelong independent, but yet he had the platform to be able to run for president twice and be a U.S. senator. And that made a lot of politicians very jealous of his movement. They wanted to embrace that energy without actually working for that energy. So you never attack the messenger. That's always going to backfire in your face. And I don't know how long it's going to take for these politicians to figure this out. They actually want to win another higher office. They can't shoot their grassroots in the face and think they're going to win them over. You just can't. Okay. That's all I want to say in this video. I'm going to continue on my next one that will discuss the same thing. But anyways, y'all, you have a great night. Love you. Goodbye.